This is called A Secret Discovered. The ship on which William Tyndale left England docked in Hamburg, Germany. The man saw a bustling, busy city, but he had not come to trade or to enter into business. His whole thought was on his work of translating the New Testament into English. Tyndale found a place to stay and to begin his work. He worked on his translation while he visited various towns in Germany. He heard everywhere of the work that Martin Luther was doing to liberate the minds of the people by giving them the Bible in their own language. In Wittenberg, where Luther lived, Tyndale saw a Reformation taking place. He saw the people listening to the Bible read in the churches and enjoying freedom of their religion. When these people had learned the Bible truths, they began to teach others what they had learned. Tyndale saw the joy the people possessed when they accepted God's truth in their hearts. Tyndale decided to live in Wittenberg, where he could be near Martin Luther. He continued to study and to translate the Bible. He also found a man to help him in the task of copying his manuscript when it was completed. William Roy, a priest who had left a monastery, began to copy Tyndale's material. Tyndale and Roy worked together week after week, comparing the scriptures and making final manuscript copies. Tyndale was so wrapped up in his translation that he had little time for pleasure. In contrast, Roy was lighthearted and full of fun. For amusement, he often wrote little rhyming verses, a pastime that vexed Tyndale. "Such foolishness is always a great waste of time," he scolded. But his secretary only laughed and kept on with his rhymes. When the last book of the New Testament was done, Tyndale was ready to find a printer. He went to Hamburg to receive money that merchant Monmouth was sending him to pay for the printing. Then Tyndale and Roy journeyed to Cologne, a city on the Rhine River in Germany. There they were told that the best printer in the city was Peter Quintal. When Tyndale called on this well-known printer, Peter Quintal agreed to carry on the work secretly, for he knew the task of printing the Bible could have dangerous consequences. "None but my own men must know of this work," Peter Quintal urged Tyndale and Roy. "I would be cast into prison should it be known that a Bible was printed in my shop." "That, sir, is my request also," Tyndale replied. "None shall learn this from us." He turned and looked at Roy, his light-hearted, talkative secretary. The young man nodded his head and said, "That is so, sir. We shall tell no one." Tyndale secretly took the first part of his New Testament to the printers, and the work was begun. The first page of type was set and locked in the forms. Then a sheet of paper was pressed against the type. Peter Quintal lifted the sheet from the press and held it up to the light while Tyndale stepped closer. Before his eyes was the first chapter of the Gospel of Matthew, clearly printed. Tyndale left the shop with the praise of God on his lips. The Bible would be printed so that the English plowboy could read, and the maid in the house could learn the precious verses. Soon his friends, Sir John and Lady Walsh, and their little lad could read the Bible in English. Tyndale would fulfill the promise he had made to them in Little Sodbury Manor. It was hard for Tyndale and Roy to keep away from the print shop. They wanted to see each precious page as it came from the press. 3,000 copies of each page were being printed, and page after page was stacked neatly in the print shop. Tyndale's heart was full of hope. 3,000 Bibles in English for England. And if this work was successful, more and more could be printed until every person could have a Bible of his own. One morning when Tyndale and Roy slipped into the print shop, they found Peter Quintal frantic with fear. Beside him stood two of his printers. "We are discovered," Peter Quintal moaned. "These men have betrayed us to our enemies." In shame, the men told their story. They had gone to the almshouse to drink, and while under the influence of the ale, they had boasted that whether the King of England or the Bishop of London liked it or not, England would soon be following the belief of Luther. A priest by the name of Cochleus had heard the boasting and had invited the men to his house. He had given them wine to drink, and when the printers were half drunk, they were still more eager to talk. 3,000 copies of the New Testament were at that very moment being printed in Cologne. They told Cochleus, the priest, this was a Bible translated into the English language by 2 Englishmen who had come from Wittenberg to have the printing done. The books were being paid for by the English merchants who were to carry the Bible secretly to England. This would happen before the king or bishop would know anything about it. The next morning, when the men were sober, they remembered what they had said, and they were frightened. They came to their master at once and confessed. Peter Quintal knew that not only would all his printed pages be taken, but his print shop would be closed and he would be sent to prison. If only he could be rid of the sheets before the officers came, he might prove that he was innocent. He must destroy them at once. The news was a severe shock to Tyndale. He could not bear to lose what had cost him so much time and effort. He could not give up his hope for an English Bible. He must save his printed sheets. He and Roy quickly made bundles of the sheets, and with the help of the printers they carried the bundles to the wharf and put them on board a Rhine River boat ready to leave for Worms, Germany. Peter Quintal hurriedly destroyed all evidence that might reveal that the Bible had been printed in his shop. When the officers came, as he was certain they would, they found nothing. On the long, slow trip up the Rhine River, Tyndale tried to decide what to do with his half-printed Bibles. He walked the deck and looked at the black hills of Germany, wooded from their tops down to the water's edge. The trees along the river were yellow with autumn leaves, and wagons loaded with harvest produce followed the road along the river. Tyndale was reminded of England in the autumn, of the Cotswold Hills, and of his friends who had protected him from the fury of the priests. He thought of the lad who had walked with him through the autumn woods and had begged to be told the Bible stories. Now the work on the Bible, which he had planned in the quiet of the English countryside, was stopped by treachery. He remembered the resolve he had made, that he would give England the Bible no matter what it cost him. Yesterday he felt near his goal, but today, because of 2 drunken printers, he seemed far from success. Even at that moment, if what he was carrying in his bundles were to be known by the authorities, his life would be in danger. Roy, who had been left to guard the packages, was watching with pleasure the passing scenery. With a laugh he handed Tyndale a rhyme that he made about the priest who had discovered their secret. A little pratty, foolish pode, but although his stature be small, yet men say he lacketh no gall, more venomous than any toad. Tyndale smiled as he handed the rhyme to his companion, but he knew that there was no foolishness in the venomous hatred of Cochleus the priest. Not even the liberal city of Worms, would he be safe from spying eyes.